readers who are getting to know you for the very first time, can you please introduce yourself and what you do?
My name is Miranda Larsen. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Tokyo. So you might say I'm an academic if you want to. I'm hopefully obtaining my doctorate early next year. So I research K-pop in Japan, specifically rookie male idol groups when they come to Tokyo to promote, and how they negotiate their masculinity and also the cultural gap between Korea and Japan.
How did you get into K-pop? How were you first exposed to this whole phenomenon?
K-pop. I was in college, so I went to Syracuse for my BA, and while I was in college, of course, I started out being really obsessed with Japanese popular culture. And in my Japanese class, there was a girl who was really a big fan of Super Junior, and she showed me the video for Sorry Sorry, and I'm like, this is pretty cool, but okay. And then I found Rain, and M Black debuted that year, and I was all about M Black. And I annoyed my roommate to no end playing M Black's Oh Yeah on repeat for all of 2009 and 2010. So that's when I started getting into K-pop, though it took a long time before I then got into it academically.
What are your thoughts on KCON and being here to experience a convention that is all dedicated to K-pop, Korean culture, and all the other phenomenon that is the Hallyu wave?
So I went to KCON a couple times. So I did my master's at UCLA. So when I lived in Los Angeles, I came to KCON as a fan. And then for now 3 years, I've been a special guest. So I've sort of seen it from both sides. It's changed quite a bit in that time, since 2014. It's really cool. It's really nice to see, especially in the U.S., that K-pop and a lot of the K-culture is like a family affair. So there'll be moms here, but they're also with their daughters, or there'll be little kids who know choreography, and that's really cool and impressive. It's also just a lot coming at you. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. We also have KCON in Japan, but it's just structured a lot differently.
How is it structured differently?
So for KCON in Japan, it's usually a 2-day event. It's at call it the Makuhari, which is a big event hall. But the stages are structured in a way so it's more about the concerts and less about a lot of the beauty things and the life experiences, because you can find that in other places in Tokyo already. So it's more of an attraction to come and see the concert and the idols.
How is it like getting to experience fan meetings in Japan versus here in the U.S.?
Well, as I said in the panel yesterday, so there's a huge difference, mostly because Japan is the most important market for K-pop outside of Korea, and that's because in Japan people buy CDs. It's also because in Japan there are these structures put in place for, we call them benefits, so things like fan meet, autograph, handshake, taking pictures together, and all of those things. There's a lot more trust involved. There's also a lot more, like lots of groups are coming to actually do a promotion cycle for a Japanese single. So it's very different than if they're coming and only doing a really limited tour in the US or in North America. When I've experienced High Touch in the US, it was super fast, very heavily guarded, and in Japan a lot of times it's not. Even as, obviously I'm not Japanese, so I get treated a little bit differently when I'm experiencing the fan benefits in Japan, but it's a lot more relaxed, and for the most part you can have a lot more freedom for interaction with your idols.
K-pop has significantly grown within the past few years, with BTS getting a massive blow up in the Western industry. How does it feel to see the progression of K-pop within these last few years?
It's both really cool and really exhausting. So I've always been that person where if everybody likes something, I don't want to like it.
Okay, yes, I understand.
If you get that?
Yeah.
So I was that way about Harry Potter. I think the first few books were out, I'm like, no, I don't want to be into it, and then I got super into it. And now seeing, especially K-pop in the US, how often, I'll talk to my parents, right, from Tokyo. I'll talk to my parents in Las Vegas, and they'll say, oh, we saw so-and-so on this show. Do you know them? Have I watched their videos?
Yeah.
And it freaks me out a little bit. It freaks me out to be able to go into Hot Topic and buy a Monsta X shirt. It means that it's reached a certain point in the cultural lexicon that we can't ignore it anymore. But it also means that someone like me, who's a scholar, has a bigger job to do, to try and educate people, because we got to be careful when we're talking about different cultures, right? And especially about how marketing and things happen in the U.S., both to protect the idols, but also to protect the fans.
What is the difference in reception of the popularity of K-pop in different parts of the world. So you do get to live overseas, so you do get to kind of see how that dynamic is. So what do you think is the difference from there to here?
I think one of the differences is fandom practices. So, like, what's foreign to me, and foreign some concept. What's foreign to me is the idea of, oh, I support this group, so to support this group, I need to watch this video over and over and over again. That's not the fandom that I started with in the US, and it's not the fandom I experience in Japan either. There are other ways to show your fandom. And everybody can do their own thing, but I think the fan cultures are very different in different places, and it's also generational.
Okay,
There's an older generation in Japan who they got into K-pop because they were into K-drama,
Right.
and they have a way of behaving differently than maybe their teenage daughter who now loves, 101 or something like that. And they negotiate in between the two. But some of the behaviors, like we touched on it yesterday, like, do you do the fan chant or do you just scream because your idol's right there?
Right.
They're cultural differences, but they're also contextual differences. It's from person to person.
So what made you decide to study on this cultural phenomenon that is called K-pop?
Like I said a while ago, I still have an obsession with Japanese popular culture. And I think both Japanese popular culture, music, anime, and then K-pop have something in common, which is there tend to be attractive men and spaces where the attractive men exist, and it's a safe space for women to go. And we don't really have that much in the US, I don't feel. Maybe back when for Backstreet or NSYNC and things like that, but then it really ended. And I'm really interested in that, especially in Japan, like doesn't have the greatest gender equality, issues going on. They're also a population that's not having children, but then you have these fan cultures that are really huge and vibrant, and it's mostly women going to see these very attractive men. I think the other thing is I'm multiracial, and I've always been interested in what is the boundary and how do people cross boundaries. So in Japan especially, like what makes the Korean idol more attractive than the Japanese idol, the domestic idol. I basically went into my advisor at my program and said, these are the things I'm interested in, and there are many avenues to do it. There's K-pop, there's visual K, there's Japanese idols, and K-pop made the most sense.
Has there been a noticeable trend in the spreading of K-pop and Korean culture in recent years, and why do you think that is?
Noticeable trend, well, for the most part, I mean, YouTube is such a big deal, and that's really, when people ask why is K-pop huge and J-pop is not, it has to do with marketing online, it has to do with, do they put the music on iTunes or YouTube or someplace, and it also has to do with the fan culture and how active is the fan culture for things like doing fan translations or scripts and sending it amongst each other. I would say YouTube has been so critical to K-pop's success, and also little groups of fan communities, passing information along, doing things like group CD orders, and even organizing trips to Korea. So I see that kind of behavior happening a lot. I don't think it's anything that's happened really in America to make K-pop, like make America more receptive. It's always people thinking back to when I had dial-up, downloading a Japanese music video. I think it's the same thing. There are people here looking for something else, and something about the Korean wave echoes for them. They're attracted to difference, but they're also attracted to something that seems a little familiar.
Who are you excited to see at the concert?
Oh, tonight I'm excited for SF9, so I'm a fan of Young, and so I'm very excited to hear them in person, and hoping that they perform some of the older songs, because I really like to see them dance.
Who is an artist who you would love to see come join KCON, whether it's here in the US or in Japan?
Probably Taemin from SHINee, because it's very difficult to get tickets to his concerts in Japan, so he's just finishing up a solo tour there, and it's a lottery process. So I would love if he would be able to come as a solo artist.
Is there a specific formula that you notice groups having and that helps them get big in different parts of the world?
Oh, most definitely. Oh, most definitely. I will say that my research focuses on male groups, so I'm not so interested when it comes to female groups. But for male groups, I think it's less about functions like the rapper, the dancer, the lead visual. I don't think that is the formula that's so important as much as personalities. So having, especially when they come to Japan, a guy who can make his way through the Japanese language. He's not fluent, but he's the one that's going to try. That's important for their success in Japan. Like, even for girl groups, that's part of why Twice is so big in Japan, not just because having Japanese members, but because of effort. I think it's that. It's also personality for having like a shy type. If we harken back to like Vix, having a Leo, like someone who looks like he'd be really brawny and dominating, but for game shows he's like, no, I don't want to do it. I think it's more about personality types than it is their actual functions musically.
Where can people stay connected and stay updated with you? And is there anything that our readers and some of your followers can look forward to seeing from you in the future?
So to stay connected with me, Twitter is the easiest thing. So my Twitter is @AkoOtaku. I also just started a YouTube channel called @AkoOtaku Adventures, and that has some of my field work. So you can see rookie idols in Tokyo doing performances at really small venues, or some of the events that I've gone to. So those vid content's up here. Also things from K-pop, from KCON as well. You can also go to my academia.edu page if you type my name in. Then you can read some of my scholarly work. So people who are interested in actually seeing like the academics take on these things, they can read there. Coming up soon, actually I'm writing, both have a conference presentation and a book chapter that'll be coming out about, we call them bias badges. So the idea of like decorating the bag to say this is the person I like, because in Tokyo that can actually be a political statement considering what's going on between Japan and South Korea. So I'll be writing an article coming out soon and a book chapter about how that functions, and also what that means linguistically, because maybe they can't read Hangul but they have badges in Hangul because they like a certain artist.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much for having this interview on the behalf of the Craze. This interview will be up soon and I will definitely notify you, but thank you so much once again.